Welcome to the WaitingForNextYear.com podcast. Andrew Schnitke on the line. How's it going, man?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good, actually.
There's so many things to talk about because I haven't been podcasting enough, so I end up bottling things up, and I'm ready to be fired out of a cannon. But we don't have any kind of an outline. There's no agenda, so we're just going to spit hot fire.
Yeah, hot takes.
Hot takes.
Get your hot takes.
All right. So first things first. I'm proud of our website today because, I've been reading all these business books lately and doing all these kind of business things, and they always to a man, to an author. I read that you are always better off hiring and finding people, hiring if it's a business application, but finding and working with people who are better than you. Mm-hmm. And as we've been covering, Waiting for Next Year has been covering the collective bargaining agreement and all the things moving around and people moving this way and that way, I am proud of our website because it's like a bunch of stuff that I can barely follow. And and between Jacob and Will and all the guys who are pumping out content on all these Cavs moves and the salary tax implications and all that stuff, mm-hmm. I get to just throw my hands in there and go, yeah, those smart guys, they wrote about it.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about that the other day. Like, it's kind of funny how, we're sort of in the what I would consider the third generation of Waiting for Next Year at this point. I mean, if you consider, the very beginning, Scott, Rick, you, myself, DP, we were the first five. And then, then we brought in some of the guys, we had the weekend crew, Denny and Jacob and Kirk. And then we brought in Steiner and TD and all those guys. And I view that as kind of like the second generation. And I sort of, think we've kind of moved on now. I mean, a lot of those guys are still here and still around, but
and Bowers too, yeah.
Bowers, Brendan Porith, all those guys.
Ben Cox,
on and on and on. I mean, I feel bad at this point. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody now. But now, all these guys we brought in over the last, whatever it's been, year and a half, 2 years, have just been great. It's just been absolutely awesome. Having some of these young, hungry guys and now gals coming in and doing outstanding work for us, and it's kind of nice to see the evolution of the site. And I think you're right. I mean, it's one of the things we aim for is we want to keep getting better, and so like you said, keep finding people that are better than us, and the site will just get better for it.
And not to single anybody out, but the older folks too, the different perspective of a Richard Pietro and mm-hmm. Popelka and all the different stuff we have going on there too. I just love all the different generations and voices we have going on at this point. It's enough self-love, I guess, but it's really, I mean, I used to know the old CBA before LeBron left and before mm-hmm. Dan Gilbert waged war against the players union. I used to know the CBA up and down and the mid-level exception and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, I really felt like I wasted my life learning that stuff when they changed it all.
Well, that's funny too, because that was like one of the first things I decided to do when I started blogging and getting serious about it. And I realized that, like, wait, people are listening to, what I say, and I have to take this really seriously.
Yeah, raise the stakes, man.
And so, I went out and I actually found the actual version of the CBA, and I read it front to back. And I understood like 5% of it because it's all written in such thick and heavy legalese.
Which was 5% more than anybody else understood.
Yeah. But I did it. Like, I just committed myself to it, and I read it, and I didn't necessarily understand everything, but I was laying a groundwork. And then I went in and read the frequently asked questions site, Larry Kuhn's site, and that really, like, having the background of having read it all and then being able to use the frequently asked questions as sort of a guide really helped. And I was the same way. Like, I knew everything about that CBA. I mean, I understood it as well as I felt that I possibly could as an outsider. And I was really proud of that. But when this new one came out, it's like, yeah, I'm at a different point in my life where sitting down and going through the painstaking progress of relearning an entirely different CBA I just didn't have it in me this time. And that's where, like you said, thankfully we've got, some people at the site who do know it and are going through that stuff and, getting themselves well versed in it, and they're able to cover it for us.
So I had an interesting conversation with somebody that I know just from around town here, but they were down in the Columbus area over the weekend, just hanging out, kind of just visiting as a tourist from up here, and they decided they were going to try and go to a Columbus Clippers game, but they didn't buy their tickets ahead of time, and they went to buy tickets, and it was sold out.
Yeah.
It was sold out on, I think, a Saturday is when they tried to go,
mm-hmm.
and it never occurred to me that baseball, I'm sure, I don't know how big the stadium is, I'm sure it's not, even 20,000, but it never occurred to me that the Columbus Clippers were such a hot ticket that they would actually sell out games.
Yeah, like the Clippers they're not a natural draw. It's really a combination of two things. One, it's a beautiful stadium in a great part of town. Right there in the heart of the Arena District. So it's a great place for that stadium to be.
It holds 10,100, by the way. I just looked it up.
Yeah, and second of all, it's on the weekends. It's just sort of an event place to go, and that's sort of the other thing it has going for it. It's an option. It's something to do. On a Saturday evening or day, depending on what game it is. But
that's the one thing baseball always has going for it.
Yeah, it's a great way to spend a weekend day when you don't have anything going on. Go catch a game, and Clippers games are entertaining. There's nothing but good seats. You're not going to get a bad seat anywhere there. They have really, really good concessions there, and it's a great time. And as an Indians fan, it's fun to get to see some people from the system.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just shocked because, no tickets, none.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say
this was a Saturday and the weather was perfect.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're not water cooler talk. People aren't like, hey, did you see what the Clippers did this weekend? You're not going to hear that kind of stuff around town. But it's always a pretty big ticket on the weekends. They also do a lot of Diamond Dog and Buck-a-Bone nights, and those always get really good crowds too as well. So it's
when we know everybody loves fireworks.
Well, people do love fireworks. I have not seen fireworks at the Clipper Stadium though. Seen them at Progressive Field, but not at the Clipper Stadium.
So you're probably one of the more checked out Indians people at waiting for next year.
Yep.
Do you have kind of the outsider's perspective or the outsider insider perspective of what this season has done or meant or not meant, or how big of a disappointment it's been?
Well,
more down where you are in the Columbus area.
I feel to some degree, I'm the type of fan that this was supposed to be a good season for. This was, to me, it felt like they were setting this up as the season to bring, the casual fan back in. Maybe it's more damaging, but as an outsider, I think it carries more weight when I see Sports Illustrated, putting the Indians on the cover. And, it wasn't just Sports Illustrated. I saw plenty of different publications in the preseason projecting the Indians to represent the American League in the World Series, and some had the Indians picked to win it. And there was all this optimism, and I did sort of buy into that a little bit. I was more excited about this Indian season than I have been, in the past few years. So I felt the weight of this disappointment. It's crushing as a casual fan, because it's tough to convince somebody like me to really buy in and watch this team with the way they play, as lifeless, and there's nothing fun about them right now. they don't look like they're having a good time.
Which is crazy, too, because that's the one thing that I'll maintain firmly as we go through this season is that there are a bunch of likable players, guys that are easy to root for, from Corey Kluber and the rest of that pitching staff, even the marginal guys like Danny Salazar and Carrasco. They're all easy to root for, Kipnis, Brantley, but somehow as a team, it's not been cohesive. It's not pulled together the way that any of us would have thought it might have.
Yeah, they just seem to have that energy sapped out of them, and I don't know what it. Maybe they're just missing Swisher, right? Like maybe they're missing that
Giambi.
up in your face bro culture to get everybody fired up. But I don't know.
I think TD was talking about Giambi today too.
Yeah, like those,
like half jokingly, of course.
But the thing is the one thing I'd always heard about Giambi is he was the ultimate like just joker. Like he kept the clubhouse loose, and I feel like maybe this team's getting a little too tight or something. Because like I watched the end of the last few innings of Sunday's game, and like this team, like. You don't get excited when this team gets a hit. Like when they get a hit, there's no like, okay, here we go, we're in business. Like this has to be about the only baseball team I've ever watched where a guy gets a leadoff triple in the ninth inning, you're down 2-0, and the crowd just kind of sits there. Like there was no energy. Like okay, we're gonna rally. Like it was just like, well, okay, whatever. It's not like we're gonna, it's not like we're gonna score.
Yeah, the pessimism is developed, and part of it is unmistakable as a direct result of how bad they've been at home. Yeah,
that's true. And I don't know. Again, I don't follow them super close, but it feels to me like they are epically bad on weekends as well. Which is the time when
it's probably true.
It just seems like every weekend they go on these tragic weekends where they score like 2 runs over the course of an entire weekend series, and I feel like that's been happening multiple times. And one of the Indians guys can correct me if I'm wrong about that. I mean, I could be, but just from the way I follow the team, it's just
I'm going to go with it, man. Perception is reality.
It just seems like whenever I check on the team in the weekend, which is when I have more of a chance to really try to follow them anyways, I'll like look at the score like, oh, 4-0. Okay, well, whatever.
Shocker.
And it's funny too because I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't admit to this, but like I dropped my cable. I don't have cable TV anymore. I have somebody's MLB TV login, and I was like, they were nice enough to let me use it, and I was like, well, this is going to be sweet. I'm gonna be able to log in and at least watch highlights of the game, and I'm going to really try and follow along with this team this year. It's like, okay, they lost 5-1. Do I really need to log in and see highlights of that? Like, it's just been that experience over and over again. Like, I don't know, they just don't give us anything to be excited about, and it's just crushing. As I'm sure it's worse. It's got to be worse for the people who follow this team day in and day out. And I always said, God bless TD and Steiner for the coverage they did for all these years, and now Bodie and Clayman, Richard, like those guys, like God bless them, because this has not been a fun team to follow. That's for sure.
So, did you have much of a take in terms of how Mark Shapiro talks about this team and how I kind of called them out for even the message, the lack of fire and defiance that seems to be flowing from this team? Because it seems to me that if nothing else, they almost, but the way they talk about their team and the way they talk about their chances, they almost will their team to malaise.
Well, yeah, if you're a player and you hear, the tone that Mark Shapiro takes when he talks about this team to the press, I think a part of you would be like, well, what's the point of being here? Like, what are we trying to accomplish here? Because it's just, it's so much of this whole, like, like the odds being stacked against us. We're not playing on a level playing field with all the other teams, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, I don't think you want to hear that kind of talk if you're a player. Like, I'd rather hear him say, there's absolutely no reason why we feel that we can't compete in this American League. Like, we have all this young talent locked up long term. We'll be aggressive in going out and finding pieces to fit. It's obvious we don't have what we need, but we're going to go out and, we're not going to settle for this. And, that I feel like that kind of a tone, at least as a player, lets you know that the front office has your back. And I just don't know that I always get the feeling that this front office has the players' back. I think they have the manager's back, and as well they should. I'm not trying to throw all this on Francona or anything like that. But I'm just saying, in terms of, you want to feel like the front office is looking out for you. And I don't know that the Indians would get that from listening to Mark Shapiro talk.
No, I don't think they would. And I think it's something that, they've been running off the same script for so long, and it used to work, that they don't know how to flip it. They don't know how to switch it.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, you're telling me all these reasons why the Indians can't compete with the other teams, but it's like, but at the same time, we're coming off back-to-back winning seasons. We got into that playoff game a couple years ago. Like, there's all this momentum that should be built on, and to let this all just fade away and to just hear them, the front office, kind of throw their hands in the air and say, well, there's nothing we can really do about it. This is just a reality that we exist in. It's like, shut up about that. Like, I don't want to hear about that. That's even if there's some degree of truth to it, which I'm not going to debate that degree of truth. But you want to talk about the realities. The realities are the things I just said. This team was back-to-back winning seasons, lots of young talent. It's inexcusable to me to think that we have to, as fans, just accept this, that, well, this is just the way it goes. Because if that's the case, what's the point?
Yeah, well, and for me, the other part of it is that I really believe when I gave Mark Shapiro the new script, even if you don't totally believe it, the Indians have players who were never available to the Angels or the Yankees or the Red Sox. And those are the players that they have to compete with when they have them under control. Those are the players that have to give them their advantage if they're ever going to win. And they almost let them off the hook when they don't say that, when they don't say, hey, look, high-price free agency, that's for teams that don't have Jason Kipnis. We've got the guy before he ever became a free agent.
Right.
And I actually... part of it is sales pitch, but part of it is I actually believe that too. Not necessarily with the actual players that the Indians have, because obviously they're not getting it done. But that is the business model. That's the winning business model. And stop telling me about the one that doesn't work.
I agree with all that. And can we also just real quickly talk a little bit too about sort of a thing that I think is an underrated factor maybe in this is a little bit of the star culture or lack thereof. And that's not necessarily just an Indians thing. That might be a bit of a baseball thing overall. Like, I mean, now that like A-Rod's on the tail end of his career, nobody likes him anyways. Jeter retired. Like, who are the superstars in baseball right now?
Mike Trout. That dude from the Nationals, Bryce Harper.
See, that's a problem when the second guy we come up with is that dude from the Nationals.
Well, but everybody else knows him. I'm kind of a jerk.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, though. Like, we're not sitting here. I mean,
there's no Pedro.
Can you keep going?
There's no Pedro Martinez.
Yeah, Randy Johnson.
We're still holding on to Big Papi.
Yeah. Manny Ramirez, Albert Bell. You just want to talk about the Indians and the names they had, and like for some reason, guys like Kipnis don't seem to resonate with fans, unless I'm misreading that. But I don't get the impression that he resonates with fans the way these guys, Kenny Lofton, Omar Vizquel, Carlos Baerga, Sandy Alomar, like all these names that they had, and Jim Thome, like on and on and on. And the Indians have good players like Michael Brantley, Jason Kipnis.
In a previous era, Michael Brantley would be one of the most famous baseball players.
Yeah, and it might be, and again, so I'm saying, like, this might be an extension of a problem that baseball seems to be having with maybe marketing its stars or something. Because, I mean, if I'm talking about baseball beyond, Trout and Harper, like, I'm having trouble naming, like, who the real stars of the sport are right now. Clayton Kershaw, I guess. Yeah, like, and that's a problem.
When
Like
I see Pirates fans talk about some of their guys, but it seems to be ultra localized. I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, yeah, but even then, like, I don't know, like, is Andrew McCutchen that big of a star? I don't know, and maybe this is part of just the way I follow baseball. I don't know. So, but it just seems to me like baseball has a little bit of a problem in terms of having stars that casual fans are excited to see. Like, oh man.
Well, I'm gonna make some excuses for baseball too, because between Congress forcing them to crack down, Congress getting involved in performance enhancing drugs, and then ESPN, and this is not to blame ESPN, but I've talked about this maybe with you, but definitely with other people, how SportsCenter has developed into this weird highlight show that you don't get a sense for anything anymore. Mm-hmm. Of the NFL highlights, you still get a sense for how a game unfolded. They've lost the ability to tell the story of a baseball game, and they don't care to even bother to try and do it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely true. I don't have much to add to that. I mean, it's just.
Do you think it's the fact that nobody wants that story told to them, or do you think ESPN and those places just decided that some producer decided that it wasn't worth telling? These are questions we don't have answers to, by the way.
No, I don't know. I just
know it's deeper than all the ad hominem attack and garbage hot takes. There's something deeper going on in our overall culture.
Yeah, and that's like, I go back to was 98? Was that the year that McGuire and Sosa had the big battle? Was that, or what year was that?
I mean, I certainly remember the year. I can't remember which. I think it was 98.
I think it was 98. But like, that was unbelievable. Like, as neutral fans, I didn't care for either guy. Like, I didn't necessarily root for one of them over the other. I certainly didn't 98. Root for their teams. It was 98, yeah. But I mean, that was must-see TV. Like, you were tuning in for their games. For
NBA free agency couldn't compete with that.
Yeah, and then you look at, Barry Bonds. I mean, my God, has there ever been, well, other than the fact that you were likely to watch him walk a bunch of times, but I mean, every Barry Bonds at bat was just this potential for something amazing, and like, all of these stars were just larger than life back then. And like you said, like the pitchers too, Pedro, Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling, it was so, Roger Clemens, it was baseball. There was just excitement. And I used to love it. Like, I followed that home run chase. I remember I was working, the closing shift at a grocery store in my hometown. And, I'd take my break at night, and like, I'd get the paper and I'd look at all the box scores and try to follow up on what McGuire and Sosa were doing. And like, I was into it. Like, I was so excited about baseball back then. And somehow
it's interesting because I think if you had a sports media Richter scale, I mean, obviously DeAndre Jordan was huge, but sure. I actually think the Ty Lawson trade to Houston scored higher on the Richter scale than almost anything that happened in baseball so far this entire season.
Yeah, and that's absurd. Like,
that's ridiculous.
Crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And
credit to the NBA a little bit, but it says something else too.
Yeah, and I think you're kind of onto something too. Like, the sports culture and the way it's covered has definitely changed, and maybe that's somehow leaking into baseball in a way that it's not leaking into the other sports. I don't know. Like, you're right. We don't have the answers for it, but I just find it interesting as somebody who's sort of fallen away from the sport and drifted away from it. But I can still think back and remember, like, not just being into the Indians, but like following Major League Baseball as a whole. And I remember watching some of those World Series in the 90s and 2000s. I mean, hell, I had the 91 Game 7 Twins and Braves on VHS. I'd recorded that game, that Jack Morris versus, I think it was Smoltz. Is that who? I think it was Smoltz.
I think so.
But I used to watch that on repeat over and over again because it was just the best baseball game I had ever seen. So I'm not a guy who's never been into baseball. Like, that's the thing. Like, I have very much been into baseball. It's just that the sport has lost me over the last, probably the last decade. And I can't totally put my finger on, one thing that's causing it.
Well, and in Cleveland specifically, every single thing that could have possibly gone right for the Cavs, short of winning a shorthanded championship, has gone right, even down to Delhi coming back on a qualifying offer.
Woohoo!
I mean, come on. These are the little big things. We're talking about the 12th, 11th, 12th guy off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, look, a guy
not 11th or 12th guy off the bench, but
a guy who started in the NBA Finals, and he wasn't great, but he held his own. Like, having that guy as a guy that you don't really care about on your, like, just giving you that kind of depth, that is a nice luxury. I don't care what anybody says, because again, we saw it happen. Like, to sit there and say, oh well, there's no way Delhi would play any kind of meaningful minutes in the playoffs. Like, I'm not making that mistake again. I've said that before, and that came back to bite me. So it's good to have. We know what he can give us if he has to play for the Cavs. So,
is it safe to say that David Blatt is not getting fired?
I don't think we're out of the woods yet on that. I think I think the madman Dan Gilbert. You just don't know. I'm still hearing reports, and I think maybe Chris Sheridan still has a source or two. I think LeBron's going to hold their feet to the fire. He's not going to sign until Tristan Thompson's deal is done. Yeah, exactly. Like, not just this year, but going back probably the last 2 years. I don't know if there's ever been a team with more crazy storylines that have ultimately panned out to be completely false.
You'd think it would give Cleveland fans comfort, but somehow I think it probably has not yet.
Well, it's been exhausting as fans. It's just exhausting that we keep having these stupid little mini controversies that ultimately prove to not mean a thing. Because it's like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, that report that LeBron was waiting until after Tristan Thompson is obviously false. That was not true information. But it was reported as fact.
And this is what happens when they go to other league executives to talk about the Cavs.
Yeah,
it's like wishful thinking a lot of the time.
That's what killed me about this Kevin Love thing. Like, look, I know everybody loves Zach Lowe, and I like Zach Lowe too, but he constantly kept reporting, well, other executives around the league feel that Kevin Love is guaranteed to leave. It's like, well, I don't care. Who gives a shit what other executives around the league think? Like, they're not, like, they have nothing to do with it. Like, it's so crazy to report that as like a source.
Well, it's like the opposing executive talks to Kevin Love's agents, and Kevin Love's agent says, well, you never know, maybe he'll talk to you. And then all of a sudden that executive talks to Zach Lowe, and he tries to – it's wishful thinking. And I don't blame the executives. I don't blame the reporter. But it's,
and I'm not saying Zach's making it up.
It's just frustrating as a Cavs fan.
Yeah, he absolutely was hearing that.
Oh, yeah.
I never, waver on that.
No, and you and I do not have time. I'm going to speak for you. We do not have time for those people who think that Windy makes shit up. Right. Or that Zach Lowe he's just pulling things out of air and making them up.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
Absolutely. 100% everything I believe with every bit of my being, everything those guys report, they are hearing. It's just,
that's not to say they're true.
You need to decipher sort of, again, the way things are phrased. And again, because that's what killed me about the Kevin Love thing. It's like, how many different ways does Kevin Love have to say, I'm coming back to Cleveland? Like, that's my plan. That's what I want to do.
He's going to do it on the Athlete's Journal blog.
Then you have to hear like what other executives think. And, it was even with Kyrie, it was just, we constantly had to hear how Kyrie couldn't wait to be out of there. And it's obvious that wasn't totally true. Like, it was incomplete information. And it might have been something that somebody heard at one point or something, but these things are fluid and they change so much. And to report the way things are before they happen is a little bit silly anyways, because if nothing else, if DeAndre Jordan taught us anything, like, nothing's over until it's over. Like, it doesn't matter at any given point how a guy feels on that day.
Yeah. LeBron taught us that nothing's over till it's over.
That's right. And so,
okay.
It's just been exhausting as a Cavs fan, though, that we just keep having all these stories pop up, and they're just the craziest thing.
Well, and like what always happens when I talk to Andrew, we chew off 30 minutes and no time flat. No time flat. That doesn't even make sense. In what feels like no time to us. So I'm actually going to hit the button here. We're going to say goodbye on this podcast, but we're going to come back on Wednesday. You're listening to this probably on a Tuesday. We're going to come back Wednesday, and Andrew and I are going to talk about a little bit about the Buckeyes, a little bit about the Browns, and a little bit about music. So stay tuned for that. More Andrew coming this week. And until then, until that's posted, this has been the WaitingForNextYear.com podcast.
Waiting for next year.